boundaries. And I feel boundaries is really important right now for us to go through and get more clarity over. Now, boundaries are an essential part of your self-care, your self-love practice. They have to be part of your self-love, self-care practice. And your boundaries impact your mental and your emotional and your physical health. Yet, so many of us aren't clear on our own boundaries, how to set boundaries, or where to even start with boundaries. So today, I want to go through an acronym I've created to help support you. You know I love my acronyms. So an acronym I've created to support you. So make sure you've got your journal, your notebook. Go grab it if you haven't. I will also create a PDF download, and I'll post this snippet in this video so you can actually print off the download as well of the acronym and stick that to the wall for at least a few months until you start to really get the hang of boundaries. So in today's session, I want to drill in how important boundaries are for your mental, emotional health, and why it's essential you start to understand how to set boundaries and how to follow through on a boundary and what to do when that boundary is being violated. Now is a really important time for us to be doing that, because we have to step up with our self-care and our self-love, because the ego will start to rear its head the moment there is fear in the collective. And there's so much fear out in the collective right now. When you're setting healthy boundaries, that is an affirmation saying, I am willing to take responsibility for protecting myself and keeping myself safe. If you are not setting boundaries, you are then saying, I am not worthy of protecting myself and taking care of myself. And what we tend to do is we put all our hope in somebody else. You have to stop putting all your hope in somebody else. You have to put all your hope in yourself. You are here to protect yourself. You are here to keep yourself safe. And this has to be a commitment. So set that intention now, and I want you all in this. So I don't want anybody here that does not believe they are 100% worthy of their own commitment to say, I will be 100% responsible for protecting you and taking care of you. Because if you don't, you are going to face the consequences. And believe me, those consequences are not worth your health. They will impact what you receive and what you can give. And the reason why I'm so passionate about boundaries, and with clients, I love working on boundaries and make sure we've got boundaries nailed, is I spent 17 years in a narcissistic relationship. And that is the universe's way of saying, until you own your self-love, until you have self-respect, until you take care of yourself, until you protect yourself, we're going to slam you with the feeling of powerlessness until you take full responsibility for doing what you need to do to take care of yourself and keep yourself safe. Because you have to make the right choices for you, even when it's hard. And you can't do it alone. The biggest thing I learned about that was I couldn't have done it alone. I needed to know that I needed a support network around me to get me out of that. I needed love. I needed role models. I needed connection. I needed to know what safety felt like. I needed to know when I was being gaslighted, I was being gaslighted. It wasn't me just going crazy. It wasn't all my fault. And it can be really difficult when you're in an intimate relationship and you're so used to that relationship and it's all you've known. So your programming from your parents will be passed down to you. So you're already limited. Yes, there might be lots of positives, but human beings are limited. And you will find yourself in limited situations until you wake up. And usually it's pain and suffering that wakes us up. This is usually the first phase of spiritual awakening. When you're in enough suffering, the ego starts to get so fierce, but the cracks start to appear. And that's when you know you need something far greater than just yourself to come forwards, to move you out of that situation, because you can't do it alone. And this is where grace, prayer really help in those situations. But we can do a lot to avoid those situations. They don't have to be as drastic as being in a relationship with a narcissist. But there's many, I was watching something last week, 30% of the male population are narcissists. And they could be anywhere. They could be in your work, they could be in your team, they could be blah, blah, blah. So it's not just with narcissists, but we need to know with our parents, with our siblings, with loved ones, with ourselves, how do we set boundaries and where do we start? So we're going to dive in. So I'm going to start with giving you an acronym, and then we're going to break out into teams, and you're going to do some deeper inquiry, and we're going to start to explore the background with boundaries. What is a healthy boundary? How to spot an unhealthy boundary? How to set boundaries? What stops us from really owning our boundaries? What are the fears? And then we're going to set some personal boundaries for ourselves. And this is going to be our commitment to embodying and how to embody that and follow through on that boundary. Okay, so if you've got pen and paper, you might want to write these down. So the acronym is EBONY. EBONY. And I don't usually think first and foremost of what the acronym's going to be. It's just whatever happens. So EBONY. So E, inquiry. So when we're looking at setting boundaries, first step is inquiry. So this, for me, when I'm inquiring, is having a real feel and a sense of what's going on within me. How do I know when there's perhaps a violation or a boundary issue? Because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good in my body. I'll get frustrated or angry. So that is your GPS system going, take a look, something's going off here. So whenever that happens, I will say to myself, is there a boundary violation here? Because majority of the time, it is a boundary violation. So to be able to really master step one, inquiry, requires emotional intelligence, emotional mastery. And that takes practice, because not everybody feels. That sounds bizarre, but they don't. So don't presume other people feel and know. That was my biggest wake up. in my previous relationship, I presumed everybody felt emotions. Everybody knew what they were feeling. And they don't. This is the biggest disconnection. So we are talking a language through our voice. But the greatest language we're always talking is through our feelings and emotions. A majority of the population are so numb and cut off. This is why there's so much conflict. If we were connected and talking, we would be talking through our energy, our emotions. Then there wouldn't be disconnection. So this is doing the work, but it has to start with you. So don't make assumptions or presumptions on others. Leave them be where they are. Don't react to them. Learning to respond rather than react is always, always much more powerful. But you will find yourself in situations where you will be reactive or mean-spirited. Just keep catching yourself. So inquiry, step one. And I would say emotional inquiry first. So you have to be present in your body. You have to be listening. You have to be showing up every day for your body. Without that, you're not going to get far, because then you're going to be setting boundaries from your ego. And there is a difference from setting boundaries from your ego and because you're reactive to truth, what's really going on. So this is where it's really important to be meditating every day. You must be meditating every day. We cannot go into the next phase. You should not be even thinking about going into the golden world the next 10, 20 years without having a solid daily meditation practice. Minimum 10 to 20 minutes a day. If you're not meditating 10 to 20 minutes a day, something is going very wrong. You cannot afford not to be meditating every single day. That has to be your priority, because if you're not, you're going to be disconnected. You're not going to hear the alarm bells. You can't hear. There's too much going on. And initially, as you start to meditate, you're going to be really having to empty out even before you can put the good stuff in. So be patient, because so many people I see start putting things in and it's not going to work. And then they wonder why nothing's shifting or changing. It's because they're too full. You have to declutter and give yourself time to empty out, declutter. And this is what meditation does. Now, in the Lighthouse library, you've got the meditation library. You've also got the 7 keys. So you can start practicing. They're 20 minutes each key. We're building up to eventually you can do a full 60-minute practice for those of you taking it deeper. But you've got everything there in the Lighthouse to make sure you've got a 10 to 20-minute daily practice. But please start. So inquiry, because without that connection with your body, you won't know a boundary has been violated, because you won't feel the pain, you won't feel the discomfort, or if you do, it will just be so normal for you, you'll just keep pushing through. And this is what I did. I knew there was pain, but I was so used to pain. It was familiar. I just kept pushing through. I kept going. There was anger, fire. I was used to it. I just kept going. I didn't stop and didn't understand that emotions are informational. All emotions are informational. Don't ignore emotions. They're always giving you information. They are a part of you. They are the language of your soul. This is your soul speaking to you through your physical body, through your cells. When you feel emotions, your soul is trying to get your attention. So we have to stop, we have to listen. So emotional inquiry. What's going on here? What am I feeling? Is there a boundary here that is lacking? Or is there a boundary that actually isn't even in place here? And then step 2, boundary. Get clarity on what the boundary is and what it would look like if you put that into place. So a healthy boundary isn't controlling, it's not rigid, but it's not slack. It's not you giving in, it's owning your worth. So you have to know what you will and you won't tolerate. And again, guess how you'll know what you will and won't tolerate? Your emotions, your body will tell you what you will and won't tolerate. Which is why that meditation practice is essential. Because that is you studying the body and the intelligence of the body and the mind. So it's understanding the language of emotions and getting familiar with the emotions that are underneath the surface. And most of all, your relationship to emotions. Most of us have really skewy relationships with our emotions. You know, we haven't been taught what to do with emotions. You know, and this is where most relationships are really damaged. It's our own relationship with our own emotions. We haven't got a clue how to treat fear. We haven't got a clue how to treat anger. We haven't got a clue how to treat sadness. Other than, oh, just park it for a while and just keep going with what you're doing. What is more important? There's always something more important than an emotion. I guarantee your mind will always tell you there is always something more important than emotion. And I have yet anyone to prove me wrong on that. But the truth is, there is nothing more important than your emotion. There is nothing more important than your emotion. Your emotion needs presence. That's why there's nothing more important than your emotion, because presence is you. Presence is who you are. So each time there's an emotion, it's calling for you to be present. Each time you're present, you're back in alignment with nature. You're back in alignment with source and connection. That's the quickest way to bring everything towards you that you desire, want. So the quickest way to come back into alignment is just be there for your emotion. Just be there. And you'll come into alignment. So know what you will and won't tolerate, and know what is a non-negotiable for you. So recap so far: Ebony, E, emotional inquiry, B, boundary. So emotional inquiry, you have to be present in your body to know there's something going iffy with your boundaries. Something doesn't feel good, something doesn't feel right. You have to pick up on it first. And then you're going to explore what boundary could I put into place? What might work here? What would it look like? And then own your voice. This is the biggest block. And this is where many of my clients, in fact, stop. This is where we can go for months, in fact, here, for them to actually really feel I'm owning my voice with this boundary. So this takes time. So again, be patient. You might need a healer. Reach out, get the support. Don't leave stuff like this just hanging. Get the help. That is self-love, to say, I need help. I've got this boundary I need to set, and I've tried setting it, and each time I do it, it's like I'm talking like this and it's just not coming out, and I'm just scared. You might feel you got fur balls in your throat, or your heart might start to speed up. You know, you'll be surprised when you start working with boundaries, the healing that will move through your body. This is a big one. Boundaries is huge, but I promise if you really focus on boundaries and give yourself this gift, you will accelerate in your growth in all areas. So own your voice, say what you need. Don't justify, explain, or defend yourself. When we justify, explain, or defend ourselves, what are we doing? We're people pleasing. Well, again, we're saying to ourselves, I'm not worthy of being clear. This is what I need. You don't need to justify. You don't need to explain a boundary. Keep it simple. Don't over waffle. Over waffling when you're setting boundaries is confusing for the other person, and over waffling, when you find yourself over waffling when you're setting a boundary, there's some body work that probably needs to be done. You need to feel safe. You're only over waffling because you don't feel safe. You're not present in the heart, and you don't feel worthy of being received. So own your voice. So important in setting a boundary. You've got a right to say what you need to say. You have a right to be received. You have a right to be loved, respected, and valued by the other person. And this is going to bring up stuff for us, because you are stepping up, saying, I'm worthy of love. Oh, that is scary. That is scary. To go up 1 or 2 notches with self-love, but you'll get used to it. It will feel really uncomfortable at first, but eventually you'll be loving it and you'll start flowing with it. But initially, it is so scary to say, I am worthy of love, and my boundaries are worthy of being received, acknowledged, and respected, because I'm worthy of safety and protection by those around me. So Ebony, so that was own your voice. So next we've got N, navigate. So you need to know how you're now going to navigate. You know there's been some emotional distress in your body, so you've set your boundary. You're going to own your voice. You're not going to over-explain. You're going to say what you need to say, and then you need to navigate this. So good boundaries include consequences. So you need to be clear what the consequences are of that boundary being violated. Perhaps if it's a small violation, you might let them off if it happens once. If it happens twice, maybe you're going to have to put something else in place. If it happens a third time, what are you going to do? If it happens a fourth, fifth, what are you going to do? So you need to know what the consequence is. And you need to be willing to do whatever it takes to fulfill what is true for you. And this is where, again, many of us get stuck. Because sometimes that is, leave that relationship, leave that job, take space from that sibling, take space from that parent while I heal. Sometimes it's bloody uncomfortable. But if you're not choosing you, again, the message you are giving to all those around you and what you're going to keep attracting is, I don't matter. I don't matter. I'm not important. So that is a big alarm bell. The universe will show you, if you want to believe you're that worthless, the universe will show you it in many different ways. It will come as so many lessons until you finally say, I am of value. So you need to know, are you willing to leave when it doesn't feel healthy? Are you willing to also learn how to sidestep when somebody's being intrusive? So there's an art. When you're delivering your boundary, if somebody's being reactive back, or being stubborn, or fighting, there's an art. You have to be present in your heart. You have to be mindful of their ego reaction is going to come up, and you need to respond back with love, but firm boundary. And in most cases, this is all about being seen and heard. So I see you, I hear you, I hear this feels uncomfortable for you. Please share, please explain to me. It looks like you have an issue or a problem with this boundary. This is why it's important to me. So you're being asked to be seen and heard. Your human right is to be seen and heard. If you're not being seen and heard, red flag. That is a red flag. Boundary. What is the boundary? Get clear. And then know how to navigate it. And then lastly, why? As in why? Yellow. Ebony. Why is for you matter. Say yes to you. So when we set a boundary, we are trusting ourselves. We step up in personal power. We start to inspire ourselves and others. We're saying we are worthy of being valued. We know where we're at, what we need, and where we wish to go. We have more direction. We have hope. We have self-respect. And we know what we want. and we're willing to take responsibility for our self-care and protection. So boundaries are essential to self-love and self-care. So how do we know when a boundary is being violated? Often we feel angry, or we're blaming others, or we've burnt out. Now we have different boundaries. We have emotional boundaries. We have personal boundaries, relationship boundaries. We can have mental boundaries, professional boundaries. There's different places that we're called to ensure we're setting boundaries. So I want you to pick one and think about, which area do I want to look at? Do I want to look at personal boundaries with myself? Do I want to look at relationship boundaries? Professional boundaries with my business or work? And we're going to go into groups, and we're just going to explore this